This week, let's have some fun. Let's talk demons. Specifically, we're going to dive into the lore of Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss. These two animated shows are surprisingly intricate in their lore, and they actually match real-world mythology and history quite a bit. Specifically, they relate quite a bit back to the Ars Goetia. So this week, we're going to be discussing the history behind the demons of Hazbin Hotel and the Ars Goetia. So let's get started with our paranormal history. Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss are two adult animated comedy series created by Vivian Vizipop Madrano. If you're not familiar with the shows, don't worry, we'll talk about them as well. Both shows are set in a world that's really based on the Ars Goetia, among other things, in real life history and mythology of heaven, hell, and demons and angels. Each show has its own uniqueness and its own accuracies relating back to our mythology. And don't worry, I'll explain what the Ars Goetia is as well. It is, after all, a list of demons from the Lesser Key of Solomon, and this week we're discussing demons. And at the end of this video, I'm going to be touching on some Easter eggs and theories as well about the shows, and ideas that people have, or just little things that I noticed in the shows that are like a nod back to history. Alright, to start, let's talk about what these shows are all about. Just fair warning, spoilers ahead. Let's get into it. Alright, so there are two shows. Hazbin Hotel is on Amazon Prime, but Helluva Boss is actually on YouTube. And you can find these videos over on the YouTube channel Vizipop, which I will link below as well. Both shows are an adult animated series, and they both take place in the same world, which is within hell and the afterlife. In Hazbin Hotel, the Princess of Hell, Charlie, who is the daughter of Lucifer and Lilith, she is trying to reform souls so that they have a chance to survive and leave hell. As currently in the show, angels are coming down and exterminating hell because of overpopulation. But as we work through the show, we find out more information. Like, mainly that the angels are doing it because they're worried that the demons or hell is going to uprise against heaven. But it is quite a good show. It's fun and campy, and I definitely recommend you check it out. Now, in Hazbin Hotel, the main demons that you're going to see are going to be demons like Lucifer, and you have Lilith. We do get to see Adam. We get to see a few other really notable characters. There's one demon, Alistair, who's very popular amongst the viewers, and I really enjoy his character a lot as well. Now, his name is actually pulled from a demon, but his character has been taking some liberties, and he's actually a human soul that died and got powers up into an overlord. In the Hazbin Hotel, the souls that are in hell have a chance to become overlords by doing deals and taking souls of the people that are down there. And if they collect souls, then they can become an overlord. And sometimes they have to fight out for a region or whatever it may be. But it looks like you have to claim territory and you have to claim souls. So in Hazbin Hotel, you have the chance to become someone powerful if you just go in and make it happen. It's kind of like crime bosses. It kind of reminds me of the mafia or something. Now, Helluva Boss, however, that show is very much linked back to the Ars Goetia. There's Goetian demons. There's a lot of very familiar demons that you will see as well. Also, we see some of the Goetian demons are linked to some of the 7 deadly sins also. That show has quite a few intricacies back into mythology. And we're going to be discussing a little bit about some of the demons that are found in both Helluva Boss and in Hazbin Hotel and how they relate back to our real mythology. Now, in Helluva Boss, pretty much what happens is there's a group of imps. They have like a sort of detective agency. It's more like a hitman agency. And then they go down to earth and they will go, take out people that souls in hell have paid them to go do for like revenge, I guess. So that's sort of what the show is based around, but it involves some Goetian royalty demons that get sort of involved into the story, and there's some other side characters and so forth. So that show it's quite good. The intricacies are really well done as well, with how it relates back into history and mythology. I do recommend that you go check out both shows. There's a lot of intricacies that we haven't seen played out yet. The creator of the show has put in a lot of thought into a lot of the things that she does in the show. All right, that's just a little rundown on the show. And you've heard me say multiple times now, the Ars Goetia, Goetian demons. You heard me talk about this. And maybe you're not familiar and you have no idea what I'm talking about. And that's okay, because I'm going to go into more detail about the Ars Goetia, the Lesser King of Solomon, and a little bit about the history of demons coming up next. And then at the end of this episode, we're going to talk about some Easter eggs and little things that the creators put in there, little nods to things, and maybe some theories as well thrown in. So stick around for the rest of the video to check that out. But coming up next, let's talk about these demons. Let's get into the history of the demons. The Ars Goetia, a reference book to demons and how to summon some of the demons found within the text, the Lesser Key of Solomon. Let's get into it. The Lesser Key of Solomon. Its original name is Lemegeton Clavicula Salomonis, or translated into the Little Key of Solomon. But people commonly use the name the Lesser Key of Solomon. So that's the name that stuck around, and some people might be familiar with it. It's a pretty common name, and you might have heard it in different mythos or TV shows or movies. The Lesser Key of Solomon actually wasn't even written by King Solomon, even though it has his name on it. It was written by an anonymous writer, and King Solomon never took ownership of the one writing it. So the book has a little bit of mystery behind it, and there's still scholars to this day that are still arguing what's accurate, what timeline is accurate, and what in the book, where did it come from, and different lores that it may have picked up from. The history of King Solomon is debated amongst scholars. Current consensus is that King Solomon did exist, but people are questioning when exactly his reign took place. He was the king over Israel and Judah. Right now, people are saying 10th century BCE, but it is uncertain. But we're going pretty far back here with this. The Lesser Key of Solomon was one of the initial works that tried to organize information on demons and hell and how people were summoning them and utilizing these demons. Now, the New Testament actually portrays King Solomon as a teacher of wisdom and actually says that he was a better teacher than Jesus. In the Quran, he's a major Islamic prophet. In most non-biblical circles, Solomon also came known as a magician, an exorcist, someone who had access to numerous amulets, medallions, seals, different things like that from the Hellenistic period. And a lot of people would reference his works when they were doing occult work. The Lesser Key of Solomon contains information on how to summon spirits or demons to help you do your bidding. And many of these demon names can be linked back to a lot of pagan gods, goddesses, minor gods, and goddesses as well. They went from being referred to as a god or goddess to some were being referred to as jinn, then being referred to as spirits, but eventually they were classified as demons. A lot of people believe that they got the name demon because the word daemon in Greek was a term for a minor god, and people just sort of incorporated that into the word demon, because a lot of the demons in this book that we're going to talk about can be related back to pagan gods. So the lore is that King Solomon used these spirits or demons to help build his kingdom. The book, however, does warn that these demons can and will try to deceive you. The book gives information on ways to impress some of the demons to make them work with you, ways you can trap demons to make them work with you and force them to work with you, or information on how to approach each interaction with the demon to get the demon to do your bidding for you. The Ars Goetia within the Lesser Key of Solomon is the list of each of the 72 demons that you can call upon, along with their sigils for evocation. So the term, the Ars Goetia, is the label for this crew of demons. It's kind of like the Ocean 11 crew, you know? These 72 demons, it says, Lucifer has assigned them to come down to Earth to do the biddings of humans. Mythology says that each of these 72 were actually fallen angels that rebelled alongside Lucifer when he fell from heaven. Lucifer has all the confidence in them to do his bidding because he is not one to be summoned by humans, but his hierarchy will take on that role for him. There are texts that show Lucifer does care deeply about his Ars Goetia. He can be seen referring to them as my dear brothers or my beloved fallen, which just further cements the idea that these are fellow fallen angels that rebelled with him. All of the 72 demons within the Ars Goetia are loyal to Lucifer. However, some of them are only loyal because they fear what punishment would be if they didn't follow him. Lucifer, even though he is harsh in his punishments, he is actually kinder than Satan or Samael. All right, now right here, we're going to go on a little bit of a side tangent because you're thinking, Lucifer and Satan, aren't they the same thing? Well, not necessarily. So I'm going to explain a little bit about going back into old information about why they are two different beings that are a part of this mythos in our history. All right, Lucifer versus Satan or Samael. I'm going to say Samael, that's sort of like his original name. Technically, original texts before the New Testament only speak of Samael. As well, the Old Testament never talked about a hell or a place of punishment for sinners. That's something that was created in the New Testament. The Old Testament was around for quite a while before the New Testament showed up. But as the New Testament took off and Christianity took off, the text started changing and started being adjusted. But originally, Lucifer and Samael were two different figures in different traditions. So when the Lesser Key of Solomon describes them as two different beings, that is what it's referring to. All right, let me explain the differences between the two of them so you help understand it a little bit more. The name Lucifer actually means light bringer or morning star. That's why some of you may have seen in some TV shows and movies that, he calls himself Lucifer Morning Star. In the beginning, God loved and appointed Lucifer as chief of all angels. He was like the star of the angels. This indicated that Lucifer actually existed before Samael, because Samael was created after the angels were already sort of up and running. Lucifer fell due to his pride and jealousy. He wanted all of God's love. Essentially, he was acting like he should be worshipped as a god by God himself. So, the rebellion kind of occurred. He fell from grace. Other angels followed suit, and that's sort of where they landed. Samael is an archangel in Jewish lore. His name actually stands for venom or poison of God in Hebrew. Samael is not necessarily evil. His purpose was to actually be the accuser. He is depicted as a member of the heavenly host with grim and destructive duties. He's considered the main angel of death and the head of adversaries or evil beings. So he would be like the head of demons or head of sinners, things like that. Sort of in charge of the bad things. Samael is the ruler of the seventh heaven, and he's responsible for evaluating a soul's good and evil. This makes Samael an archangel who gives justice, and he gives justice for both angels and devils. He will also give justice unto angels too. God granted him that ability. When God saw the consistent battles between angels and demons and devils, he then created Samael to deliver justice. Samael more weighs in on a soul's sin and sentences people to hell and enacts punishments, but he doesn't rule over hell. He works with the rulers themselves. Samael is sort of like the muscle, and Lucifer is kind of like the boss. Samael is a punisher, so can be more scary to a lot of these demons and things that are in hell. He can be more sadistic, and he scares people more than Lucifer. While there are similarities in their roles and associations, Lucifer and Samael are different beings with different drives and different roles. Lucifer was jealous and led the rebellion, while Samael was created by God to be the accuser and judge and deal with the bad, angels, souls, demons, etc. So that being said, while all of these demons are loyal to Lucifer, some of them discreetly fear him or hate him. And some of them have a desire to almost refuse to follow him because of this. But Lucifer, he is harsh in his punishments when someone disobeys him or, pisses him off. If he hands them over to Satan for punishment, they fear that even more. So some demons are just staying in line because they're just worried about being punished or hurt. Some of them also don't want to lose their status as well. Okay, that's enough about the differences between Satan and Lucifer. Let's get back to the Goetian lore. Goetia is Latin for evocation of demons or evil spirits. It's derived from the ancient Greek word Goetia, which means charm, witchcraft, or jugglery. There is also an intricate hierarchy among the Goetians. A higher ranked member can give orders to lower ranked members. While the Ars Goetia appear to constantly gather in Hell's council to discuss events alongside their lord Lucifer, they also have their own quarters within Hell, which ranges from castles to underground fortresses or even separate dimensions that are tethered to Hell. And the separate dimensions are important, and we're going to actually touch more on that as they tie into some of the historical mythos that we're going to talk about next, and also they tie heavily into some of the animated show. Regardless, wherever a Goetian decides to settle themselves, they do modify the place to suit their specific taste, as each Goetian demon has their own taste. The original Goetian lore initially introduces us to a noble hierarchy with the following ranks: Kings of Hell, Dukes of Hell, Princes of Hell, Marquis of Hell, Counts of Hell, Knights of Hell, and Presidents of Hell. Now, obviously, there were other things written after the Ars Goetia, and that further expanded upon this information. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and some of the other grimoires and some of the other texts that were written, and how they've tied into sort of the knowledge and the lore that we're at. These other works were written from grimoires and other stories that were passed down through time. The works further cemented the Ars Goetia and then fleshed out the hierarchy and the environment for both hell and heaven and the way that things operated. One such important work is called the Magus. So the Magus actually listed 72 Kabbalistic angels that were assigned to each Goetian demon. So there were 72 demons, and now there's 72 angels, and the angels are watching over each of the demons. The Magus also organized each angel into a choir of heaven, and each demon into a degree of hell. So these were like layers of hell and heaven. If you think of Dante's Inferno, it's like that. And what's interesting is the Magus was actually written in the 1800s, and it was written based on a collection of multiple texts. And Dante's Inferno, which had the 9 layers of hell, or the 9 circles of hell, that was written in 1321. So Dante's Inferno probably had a pretty big effect on what we're about to look at from the Magus, because the Magus has 9 choirs of heaven and 9 degrees of hell, which matches Dante's Inferno of 9 circles of hell. And just like how Lucifer is the boss, he assigned archdemons and archdevils who look over the Goetia as well. And likewise, God assigned archangels to each choir to watch over the demons too. I know this gets a little bit confusing, but I'm going to show you some tables coming up next that will help you understand it a little bit more. But just think of heaven and hell as if like they were a business or like a mafia crime family. And pretty much there's always somebody over somebody watching them. Like someone is reporting to someone at all times, except for the big final ones, which are Lucifer doesn't report to anyone and God doesn't report to anyone. All right, so let me just show you this little chart here that will help you understand it a little bit better. So what we're looking at here is we have numbers 1 through 9, and we have the 9 degrees of diabolical spirits is what they called it. I mean, you can think of it like the 9 orders of devils or the 9 order of hell. There's different terminology that was assigned to it. So you have each degree, and then you have the ruler of each of those degrees. So each of those circles of hell had their own ruler, which was an archdemon or archdevil. Now with that, you also had a corresponding choir that was assigned to look over each of these degrees of hell as well. It was like they were kind of keeping an eye on things, so everyone was assigned a project and a thing that they had to look at. All right, so we have our first degree, which is false gods. A lot of the names in the first degree, the demons from the Ars Goetia that are in the first degree of false gods, a lot of their names actually can be linked back to a lot of pagan gods. So there's a chance that they put some of the powerful pagan gods into here. That's sort of how the Bible worked back then, is they integrated stuff from pagan religion and brought it into Christianity to ease the transition so people would stop worshiping the pagan gods and be able to move on to the one god religion. So false gods is ruled over by Beelzebub, and Beelzebub also sometimes is linked to being Satan as well. long history with Beelzebub. There's quite a bit of information. So originally, Beelzebub started as, it's a Hebrew name, and it started with Jewish religion. He originally was a Philistine god and formerly worshipped in Ekron. And then he was later adopted by the Abrahamic religions as a major demon. Beelzebub is also associated with Baal or Baal. And Baal is actually the first demon in the Ars Goetia. So not only does he rule over this degree of hell, but he is also an Ars Goetian demon. Beelzebub is represented in the Helluva Boss animated series as well, which we'll get to. So number 1, false gods, is looked over by the Seraphim Angel Choir. The Seraphims are the 6-winged beings that fly around the throne of God. And there's different descriptions of them. Sometimes you'll see them as humanoid looking angels with 6 wings. Sometimes you'll just see them as an eyeball flying around that has 6 wings. And the archangel that rules over the Seraphim Choir is Metatron. And Metatron, as some people know, is like the voice of God. So these are angels that flew very close to the throne, and with Metatron sort of as their boss. Metatron, it's kind of like following God around, voice of God, writing down God's things, speaking for God, that sort of thing. So these are pretty close to God. All right, our next hierarchy of hell is spirits of lies. Spirit of lies has to do with demons, I guess, that are at risk of lying to you or that lie as well. So degree number 2, spirit of lies, is ruled over by Pytho. There isn't a direct link of information on who this demon was, but there's some records of a Pytho being an oracle, and Pythia was the high priestess oracle of the temple of Apollo at Delphi. So it's probably, this demon is probably related back to that because of the trying to integrate pagan religions into the Bible and so forth. And degree number 2, the angel choir that looks over that is the cherubs or cherubim. Cherubs are the angels who directly attend to God. So they do things such as protecting the entrance to the Garden of Eden, doing little tasks and things of that nature. Cherubs originally are actually depicted as having 2 pairs of wings and 4 faces, which were a lion, an ox, a human, and an eagle. They had straight legs, and the soles of their feet were hooves of a bull. Eventually, they got turned into small, plump, little winged, like young-looking babies. I think most of us are familiar with Cupid as an example. The cherubs were ruled over by 2 archangels, Raziel and Jophiel. Raziel was the angel of secrets and mysteries, and Jophiel was of wisdom, understanding, judgment, art, and beauty. Jophiel was female and Raziel was male. Number 3 in our degree of hell is vessels of iniquity. Vessels of iniquity are also referred to as the vessels of wrath. They are considered the ones who are the inventors of evil things and of wicked arts. However, in ancient Egypt, some of these demons are linked to magic and learning. So again, this links back to ancient Egyptian gods. The ruler over vessels of iniquity is Belial. Belial is also one of the Goetic demons, and he holds the rank of king. It said that he's a very powerful king, and he was created first after Lucifer. He'll actually appear in the form of 2 beautiful angels sitting in a chariot of fire, but his true form is a devil. Now, the 3rd degree of hell, vessels of iniquity, it is watched over by the choir thrones. The throne angels are the ones that are described as a great wheel that are covered in eyes. A lot of times they might be like multiple wheels on top of each other. You might see that, but actually, interestingly, in the shows Helluva Boss and in Hazbin Hotel, they actually make very accurate angels, and they make them match the original descriptions like this. So the thrones were responsible for delivering divine justice and holding up to God. The one who was in charge of looking after the thrones was Archangel Zaphkiel, and this is an angel that watches over people while they make important decisions. Number 4 on our list is Revengers of Evil. And just as it sounds, these demons will probably specialize more in revenge, even though all the demons can really do it for you. The ruler over this 4th degree is Asmodee. Now, Asmodee is a very popular demon talked about in many different texts later, and I recommend if you're curious, do some more research. You might also have heard of him as Asmodeus. He shows up in quite a lot of our modern media, but he is a pretty big figure in a lot of religious texts. There's a lot of different stories about him, but one that's interesting is he actually apparently told King Solomon that he was born of a human mother and an angel father. And Asmodeus is actually portrayed in the animated shows that we were talking about. He is in Helluva Boss. The angelic choir that looks over the fourth degree is the Dominions. The Dominions regulate the duties of lower angels. They rarely make themselves physically known to humans. The Dominions are watched over by Archangel Zadkiel, who is the Archangel Freedom, Benevolence, Kindness, Mercy, and the patron angel of all those who forgive. Now, our fifth degree is the Deluders. The Deluders are the demons that specialize in causing delusions. Most of them are specialized specifically in making people believe things that aren't true. Like, for instance, you can summon a deluder demon and ask it to make your enemy think that the enemy is like Hope or a ghost or a cat or something. So the Deluders mess with the human minds. Now, the ruler over the Deluders is Satan, and this goes back to what I discussed before, that Satan and Lucifer are two different beings. So Satan is actually not part of the Ars Goetia, and you'll notice there's a couple rulers over the degrees that actually aren't in the Ars Goetia. I won't go into detail about Satan, as we did discuss him quite a bit already. The angel choir that looks over the fifth degree is Powers, and the power angels are given their name because they have power over evil forces. They're able to stop evil from doing harm. There are two archangels that rule over the powers, which are Samael and Camael. And this goes back to an overlap here. We're seeing Satan ruling over the side on hell and Samael ruling over the side on heaven. This goes back to our discussion about how Samael was created by God to be the accuser, the judger, the one who judges to see if someone is bad or good. So it looks like he's actually working both sides for this particular area. And this would be okay because he doesn't really serve Lucifer. He actually serves God. He's a tool utilized by Lucifer, but in the end, he listens to God over Lucifer. But that's probably why another angel was also assigned to this, which is Camael. Camael is an angel that gives knowledge and genius to magicians. Camael has the power to grant them everything that they demand. What also is interesting about this is in the Ars Goetia, the summoners who summon these demons, who throw down these sigils and things like that, sometimes they're referred to as magicians. Sometimes they're referred to as necromancers. So it bounces back and forth a little bit. So this is an interesting layer because we see crossing over demons and then we see crossing over of magicians that might be summoning these demons, but there's also still an angel that also helps the magicians too. So this looks like a bit more of a complex layer. Number 6, the degree is aerial powers, and these are mainly demons that have aerial sort of related things. They might be birds, they might be in charge of wind and flight. Some of them also have control over the seas and water, so it seems to be kind of tied in together. The ruler of the number 6 aerial powers is Meririm. Meririm also goes by some other names: Meririm, Merisin, Meris, Metiris, Merahim. He is actually one of the 7 princes of hell, and he is in charge of air, pestilence, evil, and war. He also has the ability to cause fires, plagues, and thunder. The angel choir that looks over this degree is the Virtues. The virtue angels are responsible for making miracles occur upon the earth. They have like godlike abilities. The archangel who looks over them is Archangel Michael. A lot of people might be pretty familiar with Michael. Archangel Michael is involved in quite a number of stories and different theologies and religions. He's quite involved in battles and things like that, and he does show up in some tales of humans who are getting help from God and so forth. If you're interested, you can do some more research on him. Our 7th degree of hell is the Furies. The Furies are a set of demons that also are revenge demons. However, they have the ability, power, permission to also take out revenge on other demons, on angels, like otherworldly creatures. So if someone were to summon them for a revenge on a higher being than just a human being, they would reach out to a Fury demon. The archdevil or demon that looks over them is Abaddon. Abaddon is a demon prince, and sometimes you'll see the name Abaddon used for the devil himself. There's different texts that give Abaddon different abilities and backgrounds. There's things like he controls an army of locusts, he's an archangel of destruction. There's different things like that he's been assigned to. So there's quite a bit of information on Abaddon if you're interested to learn some more. The angel choir who looks over the Furies are the principalities. The angels in the principality choir are responsible for guiding and protecting nations, groups of people, institutions, especially the church. And the archangel that looks over them is Archangel Haniel. He is regarded as an angel of love and able to influence romantic and sexual feelings between partners. So with that one, I guess it kind of makes sense. Number 7 is Fury, which is anger and rage and mad. And then the angel side is like love and all that. So sometimes there's balance, or sometimes some of the things kind of make sense and click. The 8th degree is the Accusers. There isn't a specific description on the Accusers. However, their corresponding choir is the Archangels, and the Accuser is what Samael and Satan was called. So I imagine that they're related to something like that, bringing down punishment, finding the sinners, things of that nature. So they're probably within that sort of area of hell. The archdemon or devil that looks over this 8th degree is Astaroth. Astaroth is a great duke of hell and sits within the hierarchy with Beelzebub and Lucifer. He's part of the evil trinity. He is also a Goetic demon. He's number 29, and he's the prince of accusers and inquisitors. The angel choir that looks after degree 8 is the archangels. And now the archangel, it is a rank that can be given to the highest ranking of angel, but also this is a group. So there's like levels of archangels within the archangels as well. Some are like higher up, I guess, on the totem pole than others. But archangels are chief leaders of the angels, and they most often are the ones who appear amongst the mortals, and they usually serve God directly. The archangel who is in charge of the archangel choir is Archangel Raphael. Archangel Raphael is one who is known to heal. His name even derives from the word heal, or to heal. He acts as a physician, and he's also capable of expelling demons, so he's like an exorcist. The 9th and final degree of hell is Tempters and Ensnarers. And just as that sounds, we have our demons that enjoy tempting people. The archdemon or devil who looks over them is Mammon. Mammon is related to money and material wealth. There is a phrase that was actually translated by Jesus, apparently, who said, "You cannot serve both God and Mammon." So Mammon is sort of like the personification of money and just serving your life to greed. So it's kind of fitting that he sits within the Tempters and the Ensnarers. And the 9th choir of angels that looks over the 9th degree of hell are just called the angels. And these are just general angels, and they're the ones who are most concerned with the affairs of men and women. They're usually ones that send messages and accept messages, usually appearing as like divine light instead of showing up as a full angel, because that would usually be the archangels that would show up in full. So that explains a little bit about the hierarchy and the different levels within hell and heaven that are associated with the Ars Goetia. Now, the Ars Goetia, we're talking 72 demons with 72 angels assigned to each of them. So, of course, we're not going to have time for that in this video today, but I have made a separate video that lists them all, and it is very long, as you can expect. So if you are interested, I will also link that video too, if you want to learn more about each of the demons and if you want to see their sigil as well. Now, as for the book itself, some general information in it, there's invocations of how you actually invoke the demon. There's different steps on things that you need to do. For example, if there's a demon that you need to trap in order to get them to work with you, there's one where you have to have a hazel wand and you have to draw a triangle with the wand from like east to west or something of that nature. You have to be wearing a silver ring and hold it up against your face. And you have to order the demon to go into the triangle, and you have to keep ordering them until they do it. Once they're in the triangle, then they'll be in your full control. If you can still talk to them if they're not in the triangle, but they're going to be lying to you the entire time. Where in the triangle, they are required to tell you the truth. They're required to do your bidding, things of that nature. So the Ars Goetia kind of goes into a little bit of detail about things like that are just some examples. We have also some like things like some of the invocations. So like there's an example of one. Thee I invoke, the bornless one, thee that didst create the earth and the heavens, thee that didst create the night and the day, thee that didst create the darkness and the light. Thou art, I can't pronounce this, or Seroniferous, whom no man hath seen at any time. Thou art Jabaz, thou art Japos, thou hast distinguished between the just and the unjust. Thou didst make the female and the male. Thou didst produce the seed and the fruit. Thou didst form men to love one another and to hate one another. I am Mosech, the prophet, unto whom thou didst commit thy mysteries, the ceremonies of Israel. Thou didst produce the moist and the dry, and that which nourished all created life. Hear thou me, for I am the angel Paphriel Osronophorus. This is thy true name, handed down to the prophets of Israel. And that's just an opener example. I think it's introducing the author, but it also sounds like an invocation as well. But I'll link the PDF file to this video below, and you can check it out if you want to read the whole book. It's very similar to, like, I'm pagan and I do a lot of spells and ceremonies, witchcraft stuff, and it's very similar setup. Like, it's just sort of following a lot of the pagan ways that you do things. So as an example, it's trying to explain to you why certain things are important to the invocation. So I'll just go over the list with you a little bit. So it says what's important to ceremonial magic is these things. 1, sight. So you have your circle, square, triangle, vessels, lamps, robes, implements. You have your sigils that you're drawing as well. You have your sound, which is your invocation, your voice. You have your smell, and that could be perfumes, incenses, flowers, things of that nature that you're going to set up. Then you have your taste, which is your sacraments. You might even have wine or something of that nature. Then you have your touch, and that could mean a multitude of things. I mean, even just touching a wand or whatever it may be. Then you have your mind. And what the book kind of explains is you need the combination of all these things to be able to produce the demon and actually have success in summoning this demon. All right, then the book goes on to explain each demon. Each demon has a better, well, not each of them, but some of them have better days of the week or months of the year that are better to summon them. Every person's birthday is assigned a demon as well. So if there's a demon that's assigned to you, then you probably have better luck in summoning them and getting them to work with you as well. The book also discusses the magical circle, which you should also set up. Even in my pagan rituals and anything else that you see, spiritual practices, a lot of people say to set up the magical circle. It's there to protect the person who's actually performing the rite of whatever they're doing. There's actually a little guide that actually shows you what everything should be drawn on the floor and what everything should be looked like. It also has all the Hebrew names written in Hebrew on it. And it looks like the circle is drawn as a snake. I'll put up some pictures on the screen as we're discussing here right now and just show you what they look like. The book also shows the hexagram of Solomon, which is to be shown to the spirit after you summon them to compel them to take a human form and become obedient to you. The pentagram of Solomon is also in the book. The pentagram is there to preserve you from danger and also to command the spirits. Also in the book is the magic ring or disc of Solomon, and it's to be held in front of your face of the exorcist or summoner. So there is one particular demon who's quite powerful, but breath really bad. So you want to have this ring apparently. Otherwise, I guess if you get hit by this breath, you're going to pass out or whatever. And there's a lot of the demons that do just breathe fire. So I guess this ring is supposed to help protect you from that. As well in the book, we see some vessels where King Solomon apparently shut up some of the spirits. By shut up, I mean trapped some of the spirits. And this goes on to question, like a book refers to them as spirits. They eventually get turned into demons. The book also mentions that they're jinn as well. It makes sense to trap a jinn or a spirit. Trapping a full-on demon who's a fallen angel, that seems a little bit harder to do. The book also has multiple other symbols that show you just different things. This really reminds me of the stuff that I do with pagan witchcraft, where we draw certain things like somebody holding a wand or a fish or something like that. Like you kind of draw it as part of your ceremony. So this kind of links back, and it makes sense. Like a lot of this stuff comes from pagan traditions, and it kind of got built out from there. Also, the book mentions that you should have some prerequisites such as a scepter, a sword, a cap, a long white robe, different garments, girdle of lion skin. There's different perfumes and things of that nature. So you're supposed to have an adoration bath before you get started. And during the bath, you're supposed to say, "Thou shalt purge me with hyssop, O Lord, and I shall be clean. Thou shalt wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow." And as you put on your garments, you also want to say another adoration. "By the figurative mystery of these holy vestures, I will clothe me with the armor of salvation in the strength of the Most High." And they name off a few gods: Ankar, Amakar, Amides, Theodonis, and Ator. "That my desired end may be effected through thy strength, O Adonai, unto whom the praise and glory will forever belong. Amen." This is very reminiscent to pagan religions and pagan ceremonies. A lot of times you do have baths and you do cleanse yourself before something like that, and you do actually say like a spell or something while you're cleansing yourself. You do have special like vestments or clothing that you would put on after too, and you might say something while wearing them. So this is all very reminiscent of pagan cultures and pagan ceremonies and rituals, and it just kind of got transferred in slowly into Christianity as time went on. Okay, let's circle back to the animated shows, the Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss, and let's talk about which demons from the Ars Goetia and from this historical mythos that are shown within the show. And we'll talk about a few other historically accurate things that show up in the show as well afterwards. All right, so let's go over. I'm going to show you some of the demons that are influenced by the Goetian lore and mythology that are within this show. In Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel, they didn't follow the 9 layers of hell from Dante or from the Ars Goetia, from the Magus. Instead, they decided to go with a concept of 7 rings of hell, which is in Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy. So some people think that they pulled it from that. However, some of the rings have been like adjusted to fit the story, and each of them like ruled their own ring. So how it all started is Lucifer fell from hell, and when he fell, apparently they say the lore is that he met like Asmodeus, Leviathan, Belphegor, Mammon, Beelzebub, and Satan. All of them together then developed these rings of hell out of the little piece of hell that they found. And this goes into some theories about there's more to hell, and there's like a darker evil that's going to show up, which is probably what's going to end up happening. From all of this, Asmodeus apparently created the Goetian family line in the Goetian demons. So Asmodeus was the one who then sent them all out for creation. Paimon is actually from the Goetia in Helluva Boss. In the lore, he actually is the one that birthed all of the Goetian demons that are within all the realms. And then he assigned them what their role is going to be. So we'll get into him in a minute. But going back to the rings, we have Lucifer, who's in charge of the pride ring, because, you know, his pride is what made him fall from heaven. We have Satan in charge of the wrath ring. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, Satan is actually a punisher, so that makes sense. And they are separating Lucifer from Satan, so they're following some of the old lore, which is really kind of cool to see. We have Beelzebub in the gluttony ring. Now in the show, Beelzebub is a very cool character, but she makes people drinks and she gets people really drunk and stuff, so it kind of makes sense for her character. We have Mammon in the greed ring, which we know the word Mammon meant money, and he's a demon as well from Goetia, and he was all about money and greed as well. We have Asmodeus in the lust ring. And Asmodeus, I mean, it's just a demon that has a crazy backstory of multiple lores, so lust could work into any of it, really. And we have Leviath in the envy ring. And Leviath would be a Leviathan, right? And this goes in, and we'll talk about my theories as well after this, but I do think there's going to be some eldritch stuff that's going to be linking as well in the lore of the world that we're in Helluva Boss and in Hazbin Hotel. I think we're going to be seeing that. And then we have Belphegor as Sloth. We see Belphegor make an appearance once, but we haven't seen too much yet. We've seen some of the people that live in this ring just kind of lazy and stuff, so I think we'll kind of see it fleshed out a little bit more. You know, I look forward to learning more. So we meet Lucifer in Hazbin Hotel, and he makes an appearance there. Lucifer, not in the Ars Goetia, but mentioned as the boss of the Ars Goetia. Beelzebub, who is a Goetian demon. Beelzebub is actually Baal from the Ars Goetia, because Baal, the demon Baal, becomes Beelzebub as history goes on. So Beelzebub is a Goetian demon. We see Beelzebub in Helluva Boss, and she is like a hellhound, but she's mixed with a bee, and she flies around, she makes honey, and she makes this like drinks for people out of her honey and things like that. And she very extroverted, very like pretty color and beautiful design of the character, so she looks really cool. I like her character. Then we have met Mammon from the greed ring. Mammon is also in charge of one of the rings in the Ars Goetia, and he actually looks like a Joker. He's like a clown, and he's all green and everything, so like money, right? That makes sense. But we do meet him, and he is very like greedy of a character, and he kind of like fits the role of his ring. And we see Mammon in Helluva Boss. We meet Asmodeus in Helluva Boss, and he is just very like all about lust and like love, and like it's very sexual, like ring and everything. We have Asmodee, who is a Goetian demon, who is Asmodeus in the show. And in the Ars Goetia, he's also in charge of one of the degrees, one of the rings of hell in the Ars Goetia as well, one of the layers. Belphegor, we see briefly in an episode of Helluva Boss on like Blitz's phone. And in that ring, we see people are lazy. We really haven't gotten like a really good deep dive or full view of Belphegor yet. But Belphegor is sort of on his own. He's already one of the 7 deadly sins in history. She doesn't have a link to an Ars Goetian demon. We have not met Satan yet, so we'll see what that's going to look like when we hit that point. That I'm really interested to see how they handle the differentiating Satan and what his character is going to be like. Satan, not a Goetian demon, but he is in charge of one of the layers of hell that are talked about in the Ars Goetia. And we have not met Leviathan yet. However, we did in season 2 see a couple demons that looked like they were sea creatures, but they were like humanoid sea creatures. So some people are suspecting that possibly this ring might be water related and things like that. So we'll see where that ends up going. That should be interesting when we finally get to meet them. Now, Leviathan, I do think there's a combination of eldritch lore from H.P. Lovecraft, but also there is a big sea creature that is an Ars Goetian demon, and his name is Fornius. So I think that personally, I think that it's linked to both, but I don't know if the creator realizes that there actually was a sea creature demon in the Ars Goetia. She probably does. So I think there's a link there. Now, let's talk about a few from Helluva Boss that are not part of the 7 deadly sins, that are not like rulers of each of these rings. They're interesting characters. We have Paimon, like I mentioned. We see him in one episode. He's sort of like a distant father. He's a king. He's very like not super loving, but he's got something like, he's got like 71 kids. So he's kind of like busy, right? But he is the father of all the 71 original Goetian demons, including Stolas, who we're going to talk about. He's like a pretty big character in Helluva Boss as well. Paimon assisted Lucifer in his attempted takeover of heaven before, so he's very like close with Lucifer. We haven't gotten to know a ton about him yet, but he sort of seems like he's kind of like a hands-off father. But he did do like one nice thing for his son Stolas. Like he sort of purchased an imp for the day for him to hang out with because he saw that he was having fun with him on his birthday. So we'll see if anything else comes of Paimon, but he's kind of like coming off as like the classic king who has children that he doesn't have time for kind of deal. So all right, then we have Stolas, and I love this character. He's so kind and loving. He's in a really crummy marriage that is falling apart now. He's finally getting a divorce. She treated him like horribly from the beginning, but he has a daughter as well. His story is very long to explain, but I do recommend that you watch Helluva Boss because like his storyline alone like really has me hooked in, and he's had like this sort of relationship with the imp main character Blitz, who runs the business that, you know, hunts people on Earth or whatever. But Blitz is like very commitment phobia, right? So he tries to like tell his love to Blitz, and Blitz, they're in a weird position right now where Blitz kind of broke his heart. I've noticed Helluva Boss has a lot of relationship stories, which I love. Hazbin Hotel seems to be more related to the story of like heaven versus hell and, you know, damned souls and things of that nature. So it's interesting that both of them have two different flavors, yet they're also the same because they're like in the same world and the same lore. Another one who's a Goetian demon on the list is Andre Elphis. I won't get into too much detail, but essentially he's a half-brother of Stolas and Stella, who is Stolas' wife. It's a whole thing. He's kind of like always planning stuff with Stella. Like, I don't know. He's kind of coming across as like him and Stolas don't get along, and he's probably going to cause more trouble for Stolas as time goes on. Lastly, we have the demon from Hazbin Hotel that everyone loves, which is Alistair. Now, in the show, Alistair was a human who happens to be from New Orleans. I believe that they said that he's Creole. When he was alive, he was one of those people that would unalive people, and he would only take out people that were bad people. The creator of the show says, if anything, you could compare him maybe to Dexter, and that's sort of Alistair's moral compass is kind of like that. Now, what's interesting is he's a human. He goes to hell. He has all this power really quickly, and he starts taking out a lot of the big demons in charge and everything that are in the Pride Ring. And these are all human demons and demon overlords and everything. So a lot of people are theorizing where he's getting that power from. So he is an overlord. He's quite powerful. When he does a lot of his moments where he's doing like magical, evil, whatever things, people have mentioned that the symbols that show up on the screen are actually like voodoo symbols. So that maybe relates back to New Orleans. Just circling back here, Alistair in history, in our mythos, is a real demon. Alistair is a high-ranking archdemon, and he's a chief executioner to hell. Alistair is the scariest demon in hell. People are more scared of him than anyone else. He is the most depraved one in delivering punishment, if you know what I mean. Like, he gets pretty crazy in there, all right? There isn't exact origins of his story, but some people say that he started off as a destroyer angel, and he was actually cast into the pit of hell because he was taking pleasure in delivering, justice to people. But even as an angel and even as a demon, he is only like this, and he only delivers his brand of justice and, retribution, or whatever you want to call it, to the most worst sinners. Like, he picks ones that are the worst sinners, so he goes after the bad ones. And Alistair in the show also does that too. Even after he's died and he's now a demon, there's comics of him going after demons that were picking on other demons that were like defenseless, right? So their moral compass is the same, and they seem to be very similar. So they seem to have based Alistair from Hazbin Hotel off Alistair this demon from our actual mythos and history, the Grand Tormentor of Hell. All right, up next, let's talk about a few little fun Easter eggs and nods to history and historical mythos and everything that are in the show that I just thought was kind of cool. I was going to point them out a little bit and just sort of put them in here and see what you guys think. All right, the first thing that they do really well in Hazbin Hotel is they do angels very accurately. Now, in Helluva Boss, the only angels that we really see are the cherubs, and they're not really accurate. But in Hazbin Hotel, there's quite a lot of interaction with heaven. So we actually see all the different types of angels, and they actually do accurate portrayals of what they look like, the original versions of the angels. So we have the angels that are just like an eyeball with wings. We have the ones that are wheels that have eyes on them. There's all sorts of the different angels. So they do a very good job with it. And it's nice to see someone actually doing the accurate portrayals of angels, because a lot of people just think that they all look like beautiful humans with white wings, and that's not really the case from the original text. Okay, the next Easter egg, or I guess maybe theory, that I want to talk about is in Hazbin Hotel, there's a snake character called Serpentius. And, I've been trying to kind of link back every time they introduce new characters to see if there's a corresponding demonic character in history, like in our historical mythos, human mythos, that we can kind of link back to. And I was kind of thinking on him, and I was talking to my friend about it, and we were like, well, what if he linked back to the Garden of Eden? He is a viper though, which there's tons of vipers being held by the Ars Goetian demons. All throughout Ars Goetia, you'll see the descriptions are all holding vipers, so that it's related to that. But wouldn't it be interesting if it's sort of a nod back to the snake in the Garden of Eden? Because at the end of Hazbin Hotel, he ends up being redeemed through his actions, and he ends up going to heaven. And nobody chose to put him in heaven. And I guess it's just a system. We don't know yet. We're going to find out in season 2 how he ends up there. Because wouldn't it be interesting if the snake, that it's just a nod that the snake actually ends up going to heaven, even though the snake was the one who caused original sin. So I thought that was a neat little nod, and this sort of just theorizing on my part as well. Another little Easter egg that the writer put in is Adam's favorite meal. In the first episode, he actually offers some of his favorite meal, and he's eating ribs. And that's interesting because, Eve was born out of one of Adam's ribs. So that's sort of a little nod to the history inside the Bible. Also, there seems to be a lot of theories around the eyes that are on the show. There's different thoughts because there's all over the place. There's eyes that are moving around. People have different colored eyes, and some people have theories about that. But I've noticed some of the eyes look sort of like Eldritch related, like H.P. Lovecraft Eldritch. And I've noticed that some of the powers that Alistair have, he's got the tendrils and some other things that look kind of Eldritch. But some people have also pointed out that the symbols that show up when Alistair does his magics and other things are actually apparently based around voodoo, which makes sense if he's from New Orleans. But there seems to be maybe some sort of Eldritch theme. And in the show, it does, Alistair says, we find out that he is being controlled by another demon, that he's also signed a contract as well. So wouldn't it be interesting if it was some kind of Eldritch being? Now, that being said, I took a look. I was looking through the wiki at different stuff, and I noticed that there's 2 characters that are going to be showing up in season 2, and their last names are Eldritch. And one of them is Charlie's ex-boyfriend, and then I guess his sister. So I'm kind of curious where they're going to take that, because a lot of the eyes look a bit Eldritch, and I feel like there's going to be like an H.P. Lovecraft sort of Eldritch feeling or something that they're going to throw in there. Which should be interesting to kind of see how the writer takes that into the show. And if you're not familiar with H.P. Lovecraft's Eldritch lore, I mean, if you're a horror fan and you're watching this, you should probably be familiar with it. But if you're not, definitely go out and do some research on it. It's very interesting, spooky stuff, good stuff. Definitely go check it out as well. And this is sort of just something that I thought was maybe me theorizing, maybe it's a nod or something. The term Goetia, like I explained before, it's the Greek word. It means charm, witchcraft, or jugglery. And in the show Helluva Boss, the main character, Blitz or Blitzo, he originally started off as a clown or like a juggler. And his mortal enemy from when he was younger is also a clown as well, although they make up and they're friends now in the show. But I noticed there's some clown references, and Mammon, and he's the sin of greed, and he's also a clown. So I thought that was maybe a little bit of a nod to the term Goetia as well. You know, it's just a theory. The other thing that I found interesting in Hazbin Hotel, they call the angels that come down to kill off a bunch of the people in hell, they're called exorcists. And what I found interesting in the Ars Goetia, they will refer to the person who summons the demon. Sometimes they refer to them as an exorcist, and sometimes they refer to them as a necromancer or a summoner. And there is the exorcist part with the church. So I thought that maybe it just was a theory that maybe that's also a little bit of a nod towards the Ars Goetia as well. Additionally, there's some little nods to the historical mythos of Lucifer that happen throughout the show. There's a scene where Lucifer is playing a violin and he's trying to compete with Alistair. And there's a bit of a story with the devil playing the violin. And if you can win against him, you can get out of deals and so forth. Also in Hazbin Hotel, if you take a look at Lucifer's hat, he has a snake wrapped around it where it would be normally a ribbon. And he's also got an apple on there too. So I thought that was really good. That was a nice little nod as well to the different history and mythology. And lastly, the last thing that me and my friend noticed is we're not too sure where it's going to head towards yet. We haven't really thought about it a whole lot yet. But we noticed in the final episode of Hazbin Hotel that a lot of the people there were wearing hearts. There was different hearts all over their outfits. Even the blood in Charlie's hair at the end looked like a heart. And when Serpentius the snake gets reborn into heaven, he's got little hearts on his jacket as well. So we don't really know where that's going to lead, but we kind of notice there's a lot of symbolism with hearts. So we'll kind of see where that ends up. I haven't looked at everyone's theories online, obviously, on everything. Because, I also don't like being spoiled too much. I like theorizing with my friends, but I don't look too much online. But that being said, if you do like the show and you are interested in more theories and ideas, there's tons of YouTubers out there that have a bunch of theories as well. If you want to watch some more videos, just take a look at it on YouTube. There's so many of them out there. And then there's lots of Reddit posts too, if it's something that you enjoy reading up on. All right, so that's my list of little Easter eggs and theories that I wanted to kind of end the video off on. So let's wrap things up. The Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss shows, the writer really knows their stuff, really knows a lot about the mythos and religion and deities and demons and everything like that. Did a very good job with linking the shows with a lot of historically accurate mythology. And I'm really impressed with how well it's done, because a lot of times we see shows and in Hollywood and movies where they kind of ruin some of the story, or they just kind of phone things in. But there's a lot of detail in this one. And I love shows that have little minute things that you should probably pay attention to, and little nods to things, little Easter eggs. And this show has a ton of them. And I'm sure there's tons that I've missed as well. But definitely, if there's there's any that you like and that you noticed in the show, leave them below, because I want to see what other Easter eggs that are in both the shows that maybe I've missed as well. If you want to learn more about the Goetian demons, if you want to learn about the 72 demons, and if you want to learn about the 72 angels that are assigned to each demon, I did a full video on this. It is quite long. I will link it up here for you guys as well. I just did a quick rundown of every demon and angel. If you have any comments or anything, leave them below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It tells the algorithm that you like this kind of content and helps the channel grow as well. Thank you guys for stopping by. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your night.